Playing with Power MTG. Powerful cards, powerful formats. Before we get into today's game, we wanted to give a shout out to the sponsor of this video, HelloFresh. We as Magic players love efficiency, and that's why we recommend HelloFresh. Instead of trying to plan out your grocery list, just pick out the meals you want and HelloFresh takes care of the rest. It allows you to spend less time planning out your meals and more time brewing your decks. Commander players love variety, and HelloFresh delivers with 50 weekly menu and market items to choose from. They have options that range from fit and wholesome to pescatarian to veggie. They arrive in less than a week for maximum freshness as well. I don't personally like eating the same thing over and over, so I enjoy that I can try new things all the time. Looking for an easy way to eat well and save money this year? Cut back on expensive takeout and delivery and get started with HelloFresh. You'll love how fast, easy, and affordable it is to whip up a restaurant-quality meal right in your own kitchen. There are also fast and fresh recipes featuring robust flavors and filling portions all ready in 30 minutes or less. Enjoy taste and quality done quickly with recipes like When Steak Met Potatoes, Mozzarella Crusted Chicken, and Winner Winner Chicken Orzo Dinner, which is an awesome name by the way. Give HelloFresh a try today. Sign up using the link below and in less than a week get your meals delivered right to your doorstep, pre-portioned and ready to make. Use my link or go to HelloFresh.com and use the code POGPWPFEB65 to get 65% off of your first meal plus free shipping. A big thanks to HelloFresh for sponsoring today's video. Now, let's start out by showcasing our fighters this evening. First, we have our Mox Pro patron Sean, piloting the partner pair of Thrasios Triton Hero and Bruse Tarl Boar Herder. This deck, called Dawnwaker Thrasios, tries to assemble one of many layered combos to draw its deck and win the game. Sean's opening hand contains a Hallowed Fountain, Polluted Delta, Rejuvenating Springs, Volcanic Island, Eladamri's Call, an Offer You Can't Refuse, and an Enlightened Tutor. Next, we have a Shawnee piloting Shorikai Genesis Engine. This is a control deck that tries to assemble infinite mana with either Ice or Rev or Hullbreaker Horror to win the game. Ashani's opening hand contains a Manamo Schools at Water's Edge, Esper Sentinel, Silence, Tundra, Muddle the Mixture, Enlightened Tutor, and a Copy Artifact. After that we have Alex piloting Kinnan Bonder Prodigy. This deck seeks to use its commander's ability to cheat out massive threats onto the battlefield. Alex's opening hand contains a Mox Opal, Green Sun Zenith, Chrome Mox, Forest, Treasure Vault, Island, and a Lurking Predators. Finally, we have our Mox Pro patron Anthony piloting the partner pair of Tymna the Weaver and Dargo the Shipwrecker. This deck uses its commanders to grind value or combo off with Storm and win the game. Anthony's opening hand contains a Goblin Engineer, Deflecting Swat, Imperial Seal, Florian Voldarian Scion, Bloodstained Mire, Ragavan Nimble Pilferer, and his on a mulligan is a Dothy Voidwalker. Without further ado, let's kick off this tantalizing, tasty, tempting, tenacious tirade. Sean won the Tortilla Challenge and gets to start us off. Sean draws a card for turn and plays a Hallowed Fountain into play untapped, paying 2 life. Sean passes. Ashani draws and plays a Tundra. He casts an Esper Sentinel. In response, Sean casts Enlightened Tutor. He fetches up a Mana Crypt onto the top of his library. Esper Sentinel resolves and Ashani passes. Alex draws and plays a Treasure Vault. He casts a Mox Opal. Esper triggers and Alex pays. He casts a Chrome Mox, imprinting Green Sun Zenith. He casts his commander, Kinnan Bonder Prodigy. Alex ends his turn. Anthony draws and plays a Bloodstained Mire. He cracks it, pays a life, and fetches up a Badlands onto the battlefield. He casts Imperial Seal. Esper triggers and Ashani draws. Then Anthony fetches up a card onto the top of his library and loses 2 life. Anthony passes to Sean. Sean draws and plays a Rejuvenating Springs. He casts a Mystic Remora. Esper triggers and Ashani draws. Sean casts a Mana Crypt and gives the turn to Ashani. During his upkeep, Ashani casts Enlightened Tutor. Remora triggers and Sean draws. Then Ashani fetches up a Grafdigger's Cage onto the top of his library. He draws and plays a Manamo School at Water's Edge as his land for turn. He casts a Grafdigger's Cage and Sean draws from Remora. Alex sighs and Ashani ends his turn. Alex draws and plays a Forest. He casts Lurking Predators. Esper and Remora trigger and Ashani and Sean draw. Alex moves to combat and attacks Anthony with Kinnan. Anthony takes it and Alex ships the turn. Anthony draws and casts a Mana Crypt. Esper and Remora trigger and Sean and Ashani draw. Lurking Predators triggers and Alex reveals a Cyclonic Rift, leaving it on top. He casts a Dockside Extortionist. It enters and Anthony creates 8 treasures. He casts his commander, Tymna the Weaver. He casts Goblin Engineer. It enters and Anthony fetches up a Relic of Legends into his graveyard. He casts his other commander, Dargo the Shipwrecker. All finished up, and with a crazy turn 2 complete, Anthony passes. During his upkeep, Sean pays to keep his Remora. Also in his upkeep, he wins his Mana Crypt roll. He draws and plays a Volcanic Island. He casts Llanowar Elves and ends his turn. Ashani draws and plays a Seagate Reborn into play untapped, paying 3 life. He casts a Grim Monolith. Remora triggers and Sean draws. Ashani passes. Alex draws and plays an island. He casts an overloaded Cyclonic Rift. Esper and Remora trigger and both players draw. In response, Ashani casts Force of Negation for its alternate cost, exiling a blue card targeting Rift. Lurking Predators triggers, Alex reveals a Nyx Bloom Ancient, but cannot put it onto the battlefield due to Grafdigger's Cage, so he leaves it on top. In response, Alex casts Force of Will, paying a life and exiling a blue card targeting Force of Negation. Remora triggers and Sean draws. In response, Sean casts Mana Drain targeting Force of Will. Force of Will is countered and Cyclonic Rift is countered and exiled. With nothing else and his turn thwarted, Alex ships the turn to Anthony. During his upkeep, Anthony loses his Mana Crypt roll and takes 3 damage. He draws and moves to combat. He attacks Sean with Dockside, Ashani with Tymna, and Alex with Dargo. Everyone takes it and Anthony gains 2 life. In his second main phase, Anthony pays 3 life and draws 3 cards through Tymna. He plays an Ancient Tomb for turn. He activates Goblin Engineer, sacrificing a treasure, returning Relic of Legends to the battlefield. He casts Florian, Voldarian Scion. Anthony passes. During his upkeep, Sean loses his Mana Crypt roll and takes 3 damage. He also lets his Remora die. He draws, and in his first main phase, he adds 5 colorless through Mana Drain. He casts Eladamri's Call, paying the Esper tax. Lurking Predators triggers, and Alex reveals Nyx Bloom Ancient, putting it on bottom. In response to Eladamri's Call, Ashani casts Silence. Lurking Predators triggers, and Alex reveals a Talisman of Curiosity, putting it on bottom. In response, Sean casts an Offer You Can't Refuse, targeting Silence. Predators triggers, and Alex reveals a Thorn Mammoth, putting it on bottom. Offer counters Silence, and Ashani creates 2 treasures. With Eladamri's Call still on the stack, Ashani hard casts Fierce Guardianship. Predators triggers, and Alex reveals an island, putting it on bottom. Then Guardianship counters Eladamri's Call. Next, Sean plays a Sea of Clouds for turn. He casts Aven Mind Sensor. Predators triggers, and Alex reveals Lawan, Cephalid Empress, putting it on bottom. Mind Sensor resolves, and before Sean passes, Ashani flashes in an Archivist of Ogma. Predators triggers, and Alex reveals a Tropical Island, putting it on bottom. Sean passes the turn. Ashani draws and casts a Mana Crypt. Alex reveals Pact of Negation onto the bottom through Predators. Ashani casts Torpor Orb, and Alex reveals Exotic Orchard onto the bottom through Predators. Ashani gives the turn to Alex. Alex draws, takes no actions, and passes. During his upkeep, Anthony wins his Mana Crypt roll. He draws and moves to combat. He attacks Sean with Dargo and Alex with Florian. Both take it, and in his second main phase, Tymna and Florian trigger. Anthony looks at the top 10 cards of his library, exiling Altar of Dementia. He then pays 2 life and draws 2 cards through Tymna. He casts Altar of Dementia from exile through Florian, and Alex reveals Wooded Foothills onto the bottom through Predators. Anthony activates Altar of Dementia, sacrificing Dargo, milling Alex for 7. He sacrifices Dockside to Altar, milling Sean for 1. He sacrifices Goblin Engineer to Altar, milling Ashani for 1. He recasts Dargo, reduced through his sacrificed creatures. Alex reveals Allosaurus Shepherd through Predators, and Dargo resolves. Anthony activates Relic of Legends, tapping Dargo, adding a red. Anthony presents a loop of sacrificing Dargo to Altar, milling opponents, recasting it using his floating mana, then tapping Dargo through Relic for additional mana. He does this over and over until the entire table has milled their entire library. Anthony passes. One by one, each opponent attempts to draw from an empty library, loses, and Anthony wins the game. What a cool win from Anthony. The team wanted a retribution, so they went again. In this game, Ashani brings back Shorikai, Genesis Engine, and his opening hand contains the Sensei's Divining Top, Cursed Totem, Archivist of Ogma, Arid Mesa, City of Brass, Grand Abolisher, and his Lena Mulligan is a Hinge Gate Pathway. Alex brings back Kinnan, Bonder Prodigy, and his opening hand contains a Worldly Tutor, Lotus Petal, Felwar Stone, 2 islands, and his Lena Mulligans are Phantasmal Image and Lodestone Golem. After that, we have Anthony piloting the partner pair of Tevesh Zot, Doom of Fools, and Halana, Kessig Ranger. This deck seeks to resolve and kill Protean Hulk to fetch up a game-winning combo. Anthony's opening hand contains a Command Tower, Final Parting, Mana Crypt, Pattern of Rebirth, Verdant Catacombs, Overgrown Tomb, and his Lena Mulligan is a Chain of Smog. Sean brings back Thrasios, Triton Hero, and Bruse Tarl, Boorish Herder, and his opening hand contains a Lightning Bolt, Mana Crypt, Tropical Island, Taiga, Eladamri's Call, and his Lena Mulligans are Muddle the Mixture and Swords to Plowshares. And Ashani gets to start us off. Ashani draws and plays an Arid Mesa. He cracks it, pays a life, and fetches up a Tundra onto the battlefield. He casts Sensei's Divining Top and passes the turn. Alex draws and plays an island. He casts Lotus Petal. He cracks his petal to help cast his commander, Kinnan, Bonder Prodigy. Alex passes. Anthony draws and plays a Verdant Catacombs. He cracks it, pays a life, and fetches up a Bayou onto the battlefield. He casts a Mana Crypt. He casts a Jeweled Lotus. He cracks his Lotus to help cast his commander, Tevesh Zot, Doom of Fools. He activates Tevesh's first ability, creating 2 Thralls. Anthony gives the turn to Sean. Sean draws and plays a Taiga. He casts a Mana Crypt. Sean passes. Ashani draws, plays a City of Brass, and passes. Alex draws and plays an island. He casts a Felwar Stone. He moves to combat and attacks Tevesh with Kinnan. Tevesh takes it, and Alex ends his turn. During his upkeep, Anthony wins his Mana Crypt roll. He draws and activates Tevish's second ability, sacrificing a Thrall, drawing 2 cards. He plays a command tower for turn. He casts his other commander, Helana, Kessig Ranger. Anthony ships the turn to Sean. During his upkeep, Sean wins his Mana Crypt roll. He draws and plays an Exotic Orchard. Sean passes. At the end of Sean's turn, Ashani flashes in an Archivist of Ogma. In response, Alex casts Worldly Tutor, fetching up a Phyrexian Metamorph onto the top of his library. Archivist resolves, and the turn moves to Ashani. Ashani draws and plays a Hallowed Fountain, into play untapped, paying 2 life. He casts Azorius Signet. He taps Obsidian Brass to help cast Cursed Totem. Ashani ships the turn to Alex. Alex draws and casts Phyrexian Metamorph. It enters as a copy of Mana Crypt. Alex passes. During his upkeep, Anthony loses his Mana Crypt roll and takes 3 damage. He draws and activates Tevish's second ability, sacrificing a Thrall, drawing 2 cards. He plays a Mana Confluence for turn. He casts Finehorn Elves. He casts Deathrite Shaman. Anthony gives the turn to Sean. During his upkeep, Sean wins his Mana Crypt roll. He draws and plays a Tropical Island. He casts his commander, Bruse Taro, Boorish Herder. Sean passes the turn. Ashani draws and plays a Mana Confluence. He casts his commander, Shorikai, Genesis Engine. Ashani ends his turn. During his upkeep, Alex wins his Mana Crypt flip. He draws and plays a Gemstone Caverns. He casts Consecrated Sphinx. In response, Ashani taps his Mana Confluence to activate Sensei's top, looking at and rearranging the top 3. He then taps his City of Brass to activate Shorikai, drawing 2, discarding 1, and creating a pilot. Then Consecrated Sphinx resolves. Alex passes to Anthony. During his upkeep, Anthony loses his Mana Crypt trigger and takes 3 damage. During his draw step, Alex draws 2 through Consecrated Sphinx. Anthony plays an Overgrown Tomb into play untapped, paying 2 life. He casts Final Parting. He fetches up a card into his hand and an Exotic Orchard into his graveyard. Archivist of Ogma triggers, and Ashani draws a card and gains a life. Consecrated Sphinx triggers, and Alex draws 2. Anthony activates Tevish's first ability, creating 2 Thralls. Anthony gives the turn to Sean. During his upkeep, Sean wins his Mana Crypt trigger. During his draw step, Alex draws 2 through Sphinx. Sean plays a Volcanic Island for turn. He moves to combat and attacks Tevish with Bruse Taro. Bruse triggers, giving itself double strike and lifelink until the end of turn. Anthony blocks with a Thrall, and Sean gains 3 life. With nothing else, Sean passes the turn. During Ashani's draw step, Alex draws 2 through Consphinx. In his main phase, Ashani casts Grand Abolisher. He casts Mox Diamond, discarding a Plains. He casts Imposter Mech. It enters as a copy of Consecrated Sphinx. He activates Shorikai, drawing 2, discarding 1, and creating a pilot. Alex's Consecrated Sphinx triggers, and Alex, knowing what happened last time 2 Sphinxes were on the battlefield, declines to draw. Ashani passes to Alex. During his upkeep, Alex wins his Mana Crypt flip. During his draw step, Ashani draws 2 through Consphinx. In his main phase, Alex plays a Yavimaya Coast. He casts Phantasmal Image. In response, Ashani casts March of Swirling Mist, exiling a blue card, targeting Grand Abolisher and Consecrated Sphinx. In response, Alex casts Whir of Invention, where X equals 3. He fetches up a Basalt Monolith onto the battlefield. Archivist triggers, and in response, Alex taps Basalt for 4 colorless through Kinnan, then uses 3 to untap Basalt. He repeats this loop, generating infinite colorless mana. Then the Archivist trigger resolves, and Ashani gains a life and draws a card. Consecrated Sphinx triggers, and Alex draws 2. Then March resolves, and the 2 creatures phase out. Then Phantasmal Image resolves and enters as a copy of Helana, Kessig Ranger. Next, Alex casts Lodestone Golem. He casts Mirage Mirror. In response, Sean casts Lightning Bolt, targeting Lodestone Golem. In response, Alex casts Pact of Negation, countering Bolt. Then Mirror resolves. Alex uses his infinite colorless mana to activate Mirage Mirror, targeting Tropical Island. He holds priority and activates Mirror, targeting Basalt Monolith. He does this over and over, adding hundreds of thousands of these onto the stack. Each time Mirror becomes Tropical Island, he taps it to add either blue or green. Each time Mirror becomes Basalt Monolith, he uses its colorless mana to untap Basalt. Using this loop, he generates infinite green and blue. Alex casts Hullbreaker Horror. He casts Nyx Bloom Ancient. Hullbreaker triggers, bouncing Cursed Totem. He activates Kinnan over and over until he puts Thrasios, Triton Hero, onto the battlefield. He activates Kinnan over and over again until he puts Thassa's Oracle onto the battlefield. Oracle enters, and with the trigger on the stack, Alex activates Thrasios over and over, drawing his entire deck. Oracle's trigger resolves, and Alex wins the game. Ladies and gentlemen, what a fun set of games tonight. Congrats to Anthony and Alex on their wins. In Game 1, Anthony got amazing draws and landed piece after piece he needed to win. While the rest of the table fought with each other, he assembled his combo, then went off and closed out the game. In Game 2, Alex was able to fight through the pressure of his opponents. He timed his spells perfectly and didn't get greedy off of the Consecrated Sphinx triggers. We saw what happened the last time 2 Sphinxes were on the battlefield, and both players do better than to let their opponents draw their decks. Alex assembled his combo and won with some style. Well, that about wraps it up for this episode. Tune in next time when we duke it out to see who will be king of the competitive EDH table. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.